Imagine you're in a lucid dream. You start meditating and achieve penetrative consciousness through the layers of your mind. You're transported into what looks like the inside of a shopping mall. There's some kind of devas, little beings that are glowing, walking, somnambulating, kind of dream walking back and forth in this shopping mall. You're in a deep state of consciousness, floating around. You walk up completely lucid and awake and ask one of these creatures, "Where are you?" He replies that you are in New Elfland, or Elfland. It was a play on words on new land, you think. You ask these beings, who seem pretty pleasant, is this kind of where people who are good go after they die? Like a purgatory, kind of. They reply to the affirmative. You begin floating around this dimension, taking the form of various deities, talking to them about the Dharma, preaching to them, and projecting light out of your hand at them. And when you do this, their eyes light up and they begin to take the trance of the deity that you're manifesting as. They start following you around, singing the mantra that you're chanting. This happened to me. So, this is like one of my first dream yoga experiences. Preaching Dharma to the elves. No shit. I was just as blown away as you probably are listening to this. So I'm just going to read my post-dream log. Here we go. I have twice found myself this year completely lucid while asleep, and in a type of loka, like a dimension, that I could only describe as full of devas. It's the only ontological category that made sense to me. Not a dream at all, but fully lucid and awake, as I am right now, in a full meditative state, surrounded by these little creatures that seem to be sort of one mind with each other. One time, it was on the walls of some sort of castle. Another time, it was inside what looked to be some kind of shopping mall. One very curious thing is that the way that these things appeared to me, these beings, always reminded me of elves more than devas. In fact, I was so lucid in my last visitation with them that I was able to ask them questions and even teach them the Buddha Dharma. I asked them, is this place where generally good people go? Is this place where generally good people go after they die? And they answered in the affirmative. Devas. One of them made a play on words when I asked them where I was, and they said new land, but also new elf land, like New Elfland. In the Scandinavian, Alfheim means literally Elfland. It's one of the worlds on the Tree of Life, the Yggdrasil. It's fascinating to me that I absolutely have never studied much Scandinavian mythology at all, and I immerse myself generally in Eastern ontological and mythological way of viewing things. However, in these two journeys I have had to the Loka of the Devas, I find myself amongst elves. The overwhelming majority of my European heritage is Northwestern European according to ancestry. I wonder if there isn't some very deep ancestral memory at this level that persists with you. Not devas, but elves. There is very little information, unfortunately, left to us in posterity from these Nordic sources about what elves actually are. But on Wiki there seems to be some curious clues. There is some wordplay on the phrase Aesir och Alfar, Aesir and elves, indicating that they might very well be synonymous. Aesir, by the way, is cognate to the Sanskrit word Sura, which means like light being, like Deva. And there is another term for the sun, which translates as elf disk. Very, very much in line with the nature of Devas, whose realm Swargaloka is said to begin at the sun and extend up to Mount Meru to the pole star. Since there is nothing on this subject, and for some reason me and the elves seem to have taken an interest in one another since earlier this year, I will try to describe my experience of their nature. They have a very childish nature. They seem very playful. The first time I was among them, it was like I was waking up from a dream, and they all seemed to know me and were greeting me. After about 2 seconds, a large group of them that were in this castle decided they were bored of me and went to go dancing. Seriously. I'm gonna break off. The first time, this is a different time that this happened, like, it was like at the top of the parapets of this castle, and they were all like one big mind, like in a cluster of like cells or something. It was really strange. They all knew me. They like were standing there for a minute, little smallish kind of elf Deva things. They like greeted me and then they left and they said they were gonna go dancing. And then then I hung around and I was talking to, well, not, I don't think I was really talking. It was more like mentally like feeling with a couple of other ones. But I could like, there was a monologue, but it wasn't like direct talking like this. Anyway, back to the Elfland dream. I would imagine that in this very rarefied, subtle state that they live in, they are not particularly fond of most humans, who live absorbed in the frenetic chaos of separation and the sinful nature of the ego. They are childish and pure, but also very intelligent. Any one of them would be considered a very magnetic and charming personality amongst humans. The most recent experience I had in Yoga Nidra, Dream Yoga, I saw the lot of them kind of somnambulating around, so I took the trance of my deities, Achala, Avalokiteshvara, and Green Tara. And I was projecting light from my right hand while manifest as these deity forms and chanting their mantras. They really liked Green Tara. Their eyes would light up in the turquoise color of her form. They were very inquisitive and asked me questions about the Dharma, which I responded to eloquently, amazingly. I don't know how. Like, I was in this lucid dream experience and I was able to teach them and answer their questions about Dharma, and it was very eloquent somehow. And they appreciated when they were very inquisitive and asked me questions about the Dharma, which I responded to eloquently, and they appreciated this immensely. I didn't think of this whole situation as visiting elves. I saw it as me being a tantric sadhaka, exercising the various energies of a tantrika inside of some kind of purgatory to liberate these beings. I encountered a novice Buddhist monk in orange robes in this new elfland. This was really bizarre. Like, this guy, he was like a Theravada monk, and when I was interacting with him, almost like a chat screen came in, and he was communicating in Spanish, like in a chat log. It was really, really bizarre. I think it was Spanish, if I remember correctly. Maybe he was trying to figure out what language I spoke. I don't know. I encountered a novice Buddhist monk in orange robes in this new elfland, and he ascended into space after I radiated green light and sung Tara's mantra to him. In these kind of dimensions, it seems like when you project upward vertically, it's like literally higher dimension. You go down, it's like literally lower dimension. I've been in a couple dream yoga nidra, things like this. I encountered a novice Buddhist monk in orange robes in this new elfland, and he ascended into space after I radiated green light and sung Tara's mantra to him. The elves seemed to occupy an etheric space tangentially related to a very nefarious and evil presence. They seemed to be these kind of sorcerer demonic beings that were tied to the ground by chains. Either way, the elves had an overwhelmingly good nature. They are very friendly, Not at all like what you see in fantasy movies where they think that they are like elite and better than humans. Not at all. They seem to be part of one mind almost also, like they are a collective entity and not so much singular, although they do have different characteristics amongst them. Imagine how you felt about your friends when you were a young boy. That is elves. Elves, devas, whatever. I get the feeling that this is a sort of purgatory though. It seems to be filled with good-natured souls that did good on the earth but never transcended to a higher view of reality. A lot of their questions to me about the Dharma seem ridden with lazy ideas about the self and God. They are very, very willing to learn though, again, very childlike. So after I, told some of my friends about this, I tried to do some research to find out like what classification of deities I was interacting with, and I got ribus. Ribus are like elves, which is a really interesting. Is Sanskrit ribus. Basically, Wiki relates them to elves. They are said to like make technology for the gods, and they're very close to devas. Really interesting though, it was a shopping mall, and they make things to sell to the devas, so kind of interesting parallel there. I'll read you a little bit about rebus from Wikipedia, just a tiny little bit. So, rebus is an ancient Indian word whose meaning evolved over time. In early layers of the Vedic literature, it referred to a sun deity. It evolved into being a wind deity, thereafter referred to 3 male artisans whose abilities and austerities make them into divinities in later Vedic texts. Their individual names were Ribu, Vaja, and Vibvan, also called Vibhu, and they were collectively called Ribus or Ribus, Ribva, also Ribukakshan. Their name meaning is clever, skillful, inventive, prudent, cognate to Latin labor, Gothic arb, labor, toil, and perhaps to English elf. It's kind of funny. Ribhu and arb, that root, labor, and ribhu, also is cognate to German Arbeiter, where you get the word robot from, worker, and perhaps the English elf. Ribhu are depicted in some legends of the Vedic literature as 3 sons of the goddess of the morning light named Saranyu and Hindu god Indra. In other legends, such as in the Atharva Veda, they are sons of Sudanvan, which means good archer. In either legends, they are famous for their creative abilities, innovation, and they design chariots, the magic cow of plenty, channels for rivers, and tools for Indra and the other gods, which makes many envious. In later Hindu mythology, the Ribus are born in human form, who then bring their innovations to earth. Remain humble and kind. This makes some gods angry, and the Ribus are refused entry back to heaven. Other gods intervene and make the Ribus immortal. They are revered in ancient Hindu texts as sages, or stars, or rays of the sun. The Ribus are artists who formed the horses of Indra, the carriage of the Ashvins, and the miraculous cow of Brihaspati, made their parents young, and performed other wonderful works which, according to the Rig Veda, were done by the dawn, quote-unquote. According to Yaksha, they also founded the sacrifices. They are supposed to take their ease and remain every year for 12 days idle in the house of Aghoya, an appellation of Aditya, which means one who cannot be concealed, therefore the sun. When the Devas heard of their skill, they sent Agni to them, bidding them to construct 4 cups from the 1 cup of Tvashtar, the artificer of the Devas. When the Ribus had successfully executed this task, the Devas received them among themselves, gave them immortality, and allowed them to partake of their sacrifices.